I've just been warning. I know that me back.
Right. Hi. How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. It's cold here. I'm really cold. It's still
sorry, it's absolutely roasting here, but I lit a fire just to give it a bit of ambience. It's supposed to be a fireside chat, but actually I'm
roasting. Oh, it was a heavy frost again last night. It's ridiculous. It really is. It's ruining all my vegetables. But enough about that. Again, what a week. I never know quite where to start. We always think there's going to be something really positive and more crap going on. So what's been happening in your world over the last week?
Right. Well, I mean, amongst so many things, it's all been, as you know, because you've got animals, horses and stuff. For me, my daily routine is just like flat out working with the animals, building chicken runs, which is called a gallinero, by the way. Isn't that a lovely word? In English, it's a chicken run. In Spanish, it's a gallinero. So I always thought that the word for chicken was pollo, right? But it's not. That's a chicken if you're going to eat it. So if you go to the supermarket and you ask for pollo, that means chicken meat. The word for a chicken is a gallina, okay? A gallina. And a place where you keep chickens is a gallinero.
I think that's nice to have a different word for what.
Yeah.
Well, is it nice? We'll come on to this today. I don't know. I could see it working both ways. Actually, in some respects, it could fool you that you're not eating the actual animal. But that's really interesting, isn't it? That they've got different words for it.
I suppose it's a bit like beef or cow. You don't go to the butcher.
You don't say that's a beef in the field over there, do you? And yet you do with lamb, but you don't.
You do with lamb.
Yeah, you don't with pork, do you? So yeah, no, it's exactly the same here. It's full on, isn't it? When you've got all the animals and everything, it is literally from first thing in the morning till last thing at night. And I keep thinking, as I say, I mean, the grass is really slow to grow over here at the moment because we haven't had much rain and it's really cold.
We've got tons of grass. You wouldn't believe how much grass we've got. It's ridiculous. The sheep just aren't eating quick enough. They're all going to be buried in, in grass in no time at all. But yeah, so since I last saw you, we've got the chickens now.
Yeah, how many chickens?
We've got 6 chickens. 6. I think they're the Rhode Island Reds, but they're the kind of reddy coloured ones that are really good for laying eggs. That's why we got them, because we have eggs, So we got those 2 days ago. And I've been building this gallinero, which is a really lovely chicken pen. I'm not going to show you because it's not finished. I was hoping to have finished it today, but it's not going to be finished till tomorrow. It's not just a chicken pen. It's like a palace for chickens. If you can imagine the Hilton Hotel of the chicken world, that's what I've built. It's taken me 2 weeks to do it, but it's really, really nice. And I want it to be nice because I want to go up there and spend time with them because I actually love spending time with my animals because you get a lot more sense from animals than you do from people. So I've built like a little an area where I can sit and have a drink in the evening and just have me chickens and my animals. So I'm going to be surrounded by chickens, sheep and horses and a little area where if I have some friends over, I can come and take my guitar and we can sit and, it's just lovely. So I've built a balcony and all the rest of it, but you'll have to wait till next time we chat because I won't show you because it's not finished. And I want you to go. If you don't say, wow, that's the nicest chicken pen I've ever seen, I'll be disappointed.
Oh, okay. Right. I'll let you know. It's funny because I spend my whole life telling my husband about all the plans I've got for my new guinea pig shed and run, because at the moment they've got really nice Wendy house with the built-on run and everything. But I want it big enough so that I can go and sit in there and spend more time with them. So it's quite funny. I identify with that quite a lot. So yeah, I've got lovely pet foxes that are coming to visit and sit with me every night. So because I've got 2 30-year-old horses, and because it's been so cold at night, the 2 30-year-olds haven't got many teeth left. So I'm still giving them a late night feed. It's weird. I've spent my whole life with ponies and, there's always too much food for them. And then once their teeth go, unfortunately, it's a different scenario. But when I go down there at night, about 10 o'clock at night and feed them, and these foxes come and they lie down and just watch everything. They're so friendly and really, really close, literally just a couple of meters away from me. And the cats are there as well. And it's just fascinating. It's fascinating. They're really intently watching what I'm doing with the horses. And then we watch me pick the cats up and things. So they're like my new friends now. I absolutely love them.
Well, you might have seen on one of my earlier posts I did, I think last week, I didn't realize that the word for fox is what we call Zorro. You know Zorro, the superhero, you know, whatever he is.
Yeah.
Well, that's the word for fox in Spanish is Zorro, okay? So when that guy with the mask on, Zorro, he's actually called the fox. I never knew that.
No, I never knew that.
And the reason I found out is because our farmer, local chap who lives just up the road, his name's Lalo, he's a real nice guy. He came past where I'm building the chicken pen. He said, "Wow, what are you building?" And I said, "Oh, I'm putting all this wire," in Spanish, as I'm putting all this wire down because I don't want the cerdo to come and dig its way under. Cerdo means pig. So when he looked at me, he sort of looked at me like that. And when he walked off afterwards, I thought, I better just check. So I went to be translator. I realised I've told him I didn't want the pigs digging underneath. I meant to say,
probably told everyone now about the nutty British man that doesn't know about chickens. But it is really worrying because a lot of our neighbours, obviously their chickens, they do occasionally get eaten by the foxes if they don't, even during the day, because ours will come out during the day as well. We don't have many rabbits at the moment. It's really sad. There's something very wrong with the balance, actually, because a few years ago, my paddocks were full of rabbits and they're not now, which is a bit worrying.
Gosh, well, you know, every couple of days I speak to my mum, and my mum's just like the loveliest person in the world. Because to me, mum, a big deal. Oh, I'm rushed off my feet. Oh, I'm rushed off my feet. You've no idea. I say, why, mum? What's wrong? Well, there's baby rabbits everywhere. We've got squirrels eating us out of house and home. This is my mum. Okay. Now, to my mum, that's like a big deal.
Yeah.
Because normally in the past, the rabbits, we used to have a lovely dog called Amber, and she used to catch a lot of the rabbits, which we never really liked. But because we've no longer got Amber, she had to put down. Now there's millions of rabbits. And the best of it was the way she said, "Oh, and the squirrels, they're eating us out of house and home. You've no idea what it's like." But you see, the thing is, she feeds everything.
Oh, so do I. Yeah, so do I. And before everyone jumps in and says it's interfering with nature, humans interfere with nature with everything we do, just by being there, by taking their habitat, by putting fences up, you name it. So, yeah. I'm quite happy to introduce with nature. There's not enough for them to feed. We've taken away half their habitat. So I love feeding my foxes, but I've been buying them chicken wings. So I'm getting a lot of chicken wings at the moment. So, yeah. You know
what? Everybody's got their own ideas. There's going to be loads of people who think that you and I and people like my mum are nutters and that we should, accept that things are cruel in the wildlife and everything else. Nature's cruel. Well, you know what? I say, live and let live. If you're happy feeding your foxes chicken wings, if I'm happy going and spending time with my lovely chickens and sitting there talking to them because I get more sense from them, and if my mum's happy going out and worrying about the squirrels, let us get on with it.
Exactly.
That's what we have to do.
So talking nutters and everything, it's not getting any better out there in what people would call the real world, is it? I mean, there's still a huge amount of cognitive dissonance. There's a huge divide, isn't there, between the
ones who know and the ones who don't.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. Catherine, I mean, I think that some people are never going to get it. And I mean, you've probably listened and followed the same sort of stuff that I've listened and followed. And I know, like you know, that loads and loads of things are happening behind the scenes. So much stuff is coming out and being revealed. The problem is it's not being revealed on the idiot box. And most people only look at the idiot box. They don't look at what's really happening. So when I'm talking to people who I'm trying to convince that, what they're seeing isn't real, they think I live on a different planet. And actually, I do live on a different planet, not physically, but I live on a different planet mentally, because what I know and what you know and what many of people who are aware, like we can see what's actually happening, and so many people can't see it. And it just, thank God, we've got some lovely friends who live up the mountain, Jorge and Marion, and they're Spanish, and they're totally on our page. They get it. They understand. I've talked about the vaccines to them. They get it. I've talked about what's going on politically, the way everybody's being frightened. They get it. And it's so nice to have people who you can communicate with, because if it was just me on my own thinking that, I would honestly think, well, there's no place for me in this world, because I don't fit in. But I know that millions of people think like me. And you only have to look at what happened 2 weeks ago at the march in London. There was over 1 million people. And there's another march, isn't there? Not this coming Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to that with a couple of my friends. We'll be up there. There's a lot of us meeting up there. It's going to be really good. It's going to be another.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
And the thing that gives me a lot of hope is Arizona. I think that's going to be a biggie, because what's happening in Arizona with this audit, you can't suppress that forever. That has got to come out. When I'm getting a lot of hassle, which I do get, probably like you do, I get trolls giving me a hard time. One guy said to me, I won't even mention his name, but you'll know who I mean.
I know his name.
He attacks me all the time.
Yeah.
And he said to me, oh, you don't, you're talking nonsense. You know what you're talking about. You're isolated. You're an idiot. And I said, okay, if I'm an idiot and if I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to take a lot of comfort in at least 100 million American people agree with me. Because it's true. It's not 80 million. It's 100 million. We know that. We know that those people who had their votes taken off them, that we're not making that up. That's not conspiracy. It's fact.
Exactly.
All the facts are out there. So right now, while we're sitting here and you're in your place over there, we know that right now there's somebody running America, and he's not running America. I mean, Christ, he can't even get a sentence out. And he should not be there. And that, to me, is such a massive crime. Why on earth people aren't, or not just Americans, but people all around the world, why they aren't going mental? It's good that they're not going mental, because we don't want aggression and riots and everything else. But when this audit and the results come out and it's exposed to the world, people are going to have to go, we were wrong. They're going to have to. And you see, you probably know this. Nigel Farage is in America right now. Yeah. And they're going to start, aren't they, now, Trump and various people, they're going to go around and they call it this fight back tour. And I think that's the way. It's such a clever way of going about it, because information is the biggest weapon that either side have got. And at the moment, the bad side have had all the information, and that's what they're doing, bombarding people.
I'll stop you there. They haven't had all the information, but they've controlled the information channels to the masses.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and
they control the information.
Yeah, they control who sees what information, right from our schooling and everything. It's absolutely fantastic to look at, isn't it? I mean, I just feel, when you start going back a bit, when you were saying we live in a different world, I'm really happy living my different world, because I was speaking to some other people on another interview about this, because I don't feel any fear about this at all. Although I will qualify that with one thing. I feel it's not fear, it's sort of frustration, I suppose, because with the vaccine passports, for me, I've reached a stage, I've traveled all over the world, I've had a whale of a time, I've lived in different places. I'm really happy where I'm living now. I absolutely love it. I love being with my animals. But my two children, one of my daughters in America, she's just come back yesterday actually, and I'm just like, oh shit, if they've got their universities are really forcing the vaccine on their students, and they're saying they're going to make it compulsory. Now, I've been through this battle again before and I've won, but it's a pain in the arse and it's difficult, and so is my daughter. But life is difficult, and if it's worth fighting for, it's definitely worth fighting for. And a lot of the good things in life are, if it was easy, often the easiest things aren't the most worthwhile. But I suppose it's frustration, because it doesn't need to be this. When you think about, there's so many things people like you and I and everyone else could be spending their life doing, which are really positive and really contributing.
Yeah.
To me, fighting ridiculous battles like that, I just don't feel it's important, but it's not contributing something positive. It's fighting against something negative rather than spending my time and energy positive. So I find it frustrating, but I don't feel any fear around the situation at all.
No.
But whether in Israel.
Sorry again. Sorry, I missed that.
Well, I might feel very differently if I was living in Israel.
Well, I would as well. I'll tell you one thing, Catherine. I will stand by this. Absolutely. They would have to tie me down to give me a jab. And they would have to tie me down to give me a PCR test as well.
Absolutely.
I will not have it. And, you know, we know, you know, that everything that they're talking about now, enforced vaccinations and mandatory and everything, goes against our human rights. Okay, forget all the conspiracy stuff. This wonderful body belongs to me. Okay, it's mine, and I'm not being forced to have anything put into jabbed into my arm. I've looked into what's in that, and I do not want it. And I know that, like you know, that my immune system, I'm a healthy young guy. I'm 52. All right, I'm not that young, but I'm fit. And I'm healthy and I look after myself. And I know that I do not need anything, and especially anything that they're trying to put into my body to help me fight a virus that's, let's face it, no more dangerous than the flu. I am not going to do it. And that's the bottom line. Now, right now, aren't these trials going on? This Reiner, the German guy, is taking them all to the...
Yeah. Reiner Fulmick, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. Now, if the law... if that is a real situation, and that goes against the Nuremberg Code to force people, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely.
How can they possibly enforce that on people like yourself and me who just don't want it? I do not want it. If I die of COVID, and people say to me, "They're stupid idiot," I'm prepared to take that risk.
I'm quite happy to. I mean, I'm going to die at some stage, and you know, that's fine.
Well, I know they're going to.
But I think they've been very clever, Jonathan, because what they're looking at is they're looking at, not in a lot of the countries, not the governments mandating it, but they're putting pressure on the individual businesses. And where these businesses are being so bloody stupid, and seriously, I can't believe how stupid some people are, is when it all goes tits up, it's not going to be the government that's going to be liable and be on the Nuremberg courts. Well, it will be, but it will also be the head of all these businesses that think they're being so clever to do it. But it's a fascinating one, because I also really strongly believe that, you know, you can protect yourself from anything. I mean, for me, they would literally have to tie me down very, very strongly as well. But, you know, equally, I do believe we can protect ourselves with mind over matter. But the whole thing is just such, I still cannot believe how most people are going along with it. But going on to the vaccine question, though, so we feel really strongly, you and I feel really strongly about this. Now look about animals. Look about how many animals are annually vaccinated. If you've got a competition horse, it's every 6 months at least. I think more often than that for the flu now. And one of the things I've been looking at throughout the whole of this process, and I wanted to chat about today, is where what we've learned over the last year and a half ourselves about everything that's been going on in the global situation, where we're questioning some of the things we've done with animals in the past and belief systems, because so many of these belief systems, it's always been when you've grown up with something being normal, quite often until something happens, you don't question it.
So many things have happened like that, haven't they? I'm now questioning every single thing that's happened. Every major event that's happened. And do you know what? A lot of it now, I'll tell you this very quickly. Do you remember when the Iraq war was going on and Osama bin Laden was painted out as this most dangerous man, the most wanted man in the world? Remember all that?
Oh, I certainly do.
Now, Osama bin Laden was a falconer. I don't know if you knew this. He was a falconer. He kept birds of prey. He was passionate about going out on hunting trips with the falcons in the desert. And so much so that he put millions of dollars, or whatever his currency was, into a breeding facility in Morocco. And the reason I know this is because I went there and saw it, where they were breeding these beautiful falcons, okay? And they were also breeding a bird called a houbara, which is a game bird that they used to hunt. So he was actually a conservationist, and he loved falcons, and he loved the whole natural. He was in touch with the natural aspect of the desert and going out with the camels and hunting with the falcons, which was, of course, traditional as part of his culture. And I remember thinking at the time, that doesn't fit with the sort of profile of a dangerous sort of terrorist killer type who's going to be, you know, bringing down twin towers and stuff like that. It just didn't fit. And since then, I've found out by speaking to numerous people, including Charlie, that people who'd met Osama, that actually he was a very gently spoken, kind man. And, you know, I don't know because I wasn't there, but from what I've been told, actually he was completely and utterly characterized by the West.
Absolutely.
Evil thing, the evil. And you know, I write songs and I do albums and stuff like that. And I'm writing a song at the moment, and I think I'm going to call it, I'm quite decided the name, but I'm going to call it something along the lines of "We thought we were the good guys," because that's what we've been told all our lives. We're the goodies, they're the baddies. You know, we're the good side, they're the bad side.
It's like cowboys and Indians all over again, isn't it?
Well, the more I look at the West and the Western culture, you know, Britain, America, and various what we call modern countries, we're absolutely disgusting. We're worse. We're worse than these third world countries. Look at the way people have this sort of here today, gone tomorrow. They use stuff, they throw it away, they leave crap, rubbish everywhere, they graffiti everything. Yeah. Everything's, you know, everyone's lazy. There's lots of, like, you know, this horrible fast food. They don't think, they've got no conscience. They don't this modern world that we're supposed to think is advanced. Actually, I question that. I don't think it is advanced at all. I think that people from third world countries are actually right. They've got it right. No wonder they look at us. No wonder people in the Middle East and people, especially in Iraq and stuff, and they look, they think, hang on, they've come to our country, destroyed it, bombed the crap out of everywhere, taken all our oil. I mean, it's outrageous. And yet the news tells us that we're the goodies.
Oh, and that we're saving them and making them into, turning them out of savages into good religious people. I'm going to come back on a couple of things that you said in there, actually, just because things. So I agree with all of that, almost. But I'm going to come back to the fact that he was a conservationist. So for me, I was been listening to some really great interviews recently and books and things like this. Now, native tribes and people that live naturally, which obviously we don't anymore, so fair enough, but they had the utmost respect for every life. I think we talked about this before, that was taken, and they only took what they absolutely needed, and that they gave thanks for that and did it in as humane a way as possible. But for me, there's nothing conservationist about breeding animals to be hunted. That's I do not see how that is conservation. And I heard, you know, what I would say, it's like this whole argument, you know, coming on to farm animals again. You know, it's a huge argument. Yes, you can look, whether I do a lot in dog nutrition. Dogs aren't wolves anymore. They're not living in the wild. Farmed animals, even good organic farm animals, typically have 15 to 20% more fat than the wild counterparts. There's so many non-comparisons. We're living in a polluted, stressful environment, etc. So there's so many things that take you away. Now, I'm not saying it's easy living in the wild either, but a lot of people sort of say with farm animals, well, you know, or even if you've got pheasants, there's loads of pheasant shooting where I live, loads of pheasants. I've got pet pheasants I feed as well, and I love them. And I think they like me as well, because I feed them. But the thing is, those pheasants are bred. They're not bred to look after themselves at all. They've been bred in captivity. They've been kept in cages, and they're released for people, idiots, to go and shoot.
I know.
So, but the point is about a lot of people sort of say, well, they've had a really lovely life, and they have one bad day, which is the day they go to slaughter. So that's one argument that a lot of people truly believe. Okay. There's the other argument when I say, right, let's take your children, let's take my children. They've got to whatever age they are. They've had a really nice free range life and everything, but now they're going to have their one bad day, and I'm going to line up all their class. They've been really free range. They've had a great free range life, my children. Pretty organic life as well, my children. But now their days come, their one bad days come. So I'm going to line them up with all their friends and take them off to the slaughterhouse. What's the difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a difficult one for me to answer, because, I mean, obviously, nobody would ever want their children to be harmed. But if we just take it back to the pheasant shooting thing you talked about, because I've thought about this a lot. And years ago, 5-6 years ago, I remember I was living in a place called Southleigh in Devon, a beautiful valley, okay? And I used to ride my horses up in the woods every night. I used to go for walks, and I knew all the birds, and where the woodpeckers were, I knew where the buzzards and the hobbies were, and I knew all of the animals, just like you would do, because I lived there and I loved it. And then in the winter, when the pheasant shoot started, you get all these men come down from London in the big posh Range Rovers and the big flashy gear, and they blast the crap out of the whole valley for a whole day, and they pay thousands of pounds to do it, and then they all bugger off. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the reason it absolutely infuriated me is because the animals. I remember this particular day, I was in my little studio, and there was a line of beaters, and they were beating for the pheasants to come out. And what they did is they scared out of the forest opposite the house that I was looking at, a roe deer with a fawn, and the roe deer, both of them ran out into the field, right in front of the line of guns, and the mother went that way, and the fawn went that way, and they separated, okay, and they ran off. Now, I wanted to run out. It still makes me upset thinking about it. I could cry. I wanted to run out from my studio and say to these bloody idiots with their guns making a hell of a row, what the hell are you doing? Can't you see you've just upset every animal that lives here every single day that you come down for one day, your flashy money and your flashy Range Rovers, and you disrupt the whole cycle of life which lives here every single day. And now you've separated a mother and its fawn just because you think blasting the hell out of a load of pheasants, which are pretty tame in the first place, you think it's sport. It's not sport. It's outrageous. I was so mad. I was so mad. And at the time, my partner at the time had to stop me. She said, no, don't go out. Don't go out because this is the local economy. And I understand it is an economy. People make the money from it. But to me, and probably to you as well, is it really worth blasting the hell out of the whole wood, upsetting all the animals that live there, just so some bloody fat arse can come and shoot pheasants because he thinks it makes him feel good? And especially when you couldn't miss them if you were blindfolded.
No, and quite often they clip their wings. And also, I don't know if it's a local economy. That doesn't even come into the equation for me because there's plenty of other things people can do. That's just like saying child trafficking is their local economy. Yeah. Because for a lot of people it is. That's what they've grown up in. That's what they've got. I was on a call today because I'm doing some training with the elephant orphanage in Zambia, helping them to use the natural remedies. The most amazing people out there. I think I've mentioned it before. They're just incredible. And they've had a massive increase in poaching in Zambia since COVID because there are certain areas of Zambia where it's very driven by tourism. And now the tourism stopped, they've got no money. So now they're making their money through poaching again. It's really tragic where they haven't. Now, that is a different argument to me because we're talking about people there that have got nothing. They can't go into their local Sainsbury's and get a job packing shells, They have very little other options. I still don't think it's right, but they've got far fewer choices than, say, someone in England has. And I think we've got this mentality where that has come out so much, so passionately, and so many of us over this last year, where we've realised the lies we've been told, the brainwashes, and what we've always believed might have been okay before isn't okay anymore. And I just think it's really interesting. Another example, which I'd really like your opinion on. So a lot of people around here have dressage horses and they'll hack them over the heath, but they'll still have the flash nose bands on, they'll still have the draw reins, and they'll still be wearing spurs. So I was driving off to see my mum today, and in a lovely country lane up from my hill, and there were these 4 really lovely women on these lovely horses trotting up the hill. 3 out of the 4 women had spurs on. And every time they were doing their rise and trot, their legs were going like this. So every single pace, they were jabbing those spurs into the horses up. Now, those people love their horses. I absolutely 100% believe they love their horses. But there's a couple of issues here. Why the hell do we think things like spurs or carrying a whip is acceptable on horse? Because if you saw me walking up the road, jabbing a metal bit of something into my dog's ribs, I would assume you'd report me to the RSPCA or some organisation that actually did some good. Yeah. If you saw me walking up, I'm
really well qualified to answer this, actually. It's a good.
Just let me finish. So, and also, if you've got a whip with a horse. So again, if I was walking up the road with a whip, just in case I needed to encourage my dog on. Because it's kinder for me to use the whip than kick it in the ribs. Well,
Yeah.
that's like me saying to you, Johnathan, in my opinion, do you want me to slap you or kick you? They're both wrong.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, but this is because I've had this question thrown at me many times. I use a dressage whip and I use spurs when I do my shows, and people say to me, "Oh, that's because you're hitting them," but they don't understand. For the sort of work that I do, and people who are performing and the very high level stuff on a Spanish horse, if I want it to, okay, this side of the horse's body here.
Yeah.
If you have the spurs on, if you're wearing spurs, if I touch here, that means go sideways.
Yeah.
If I put here, like that far away with my leg with spurs, it means the front needs to come round. If you move your leg back 3 inches, it means you want the back end to go around. So what that does, spurs in my situation, and I can't speak for everybody, but it's a bit like if you can imagine looking at a blackboard and there's all these words on the blackboard, if you're allowed to say blackboard these days. And yeah, but you can, what I'm trying to say is, if I'm pointing out a word on a blackboard and I've got a stick, I can point right to the word, okay? Because I've got a little point and I can point to the very word. If I haven't got a stick, if I've just got a stump, I could say it's that word and you wouldn't know which word. So what the spurs do on a horse, for me and for people who I know, it gives you greater clarity. And it doesn't mean you're going to kick the horse or use them aggressive. Far from it. It means you can be really light. You hardly touch them.
But 90%, I'm just going to interrupt you now, because one, that's an ideal scenario. Okay.
But that's my point. That's my point, though, Catherine. Yeah, because an ideal scenario.
Use them like that.
That's the problem. You've hit the nail on the head. Lots of people put spurs on and it's completely unnecessary. And they're using them because either they think it makes them look, you know, like they know what they're doing, or they're going to go, ooh, and they're using it aggressively.
Or they don't even know, because these women were really lovely. Oh, yeah. And they had no idea. So what I did is I did something that I'm always banned from doing when my children or husband in the car. Don't stop, don't stop. So I drove up, found a parking place, a lay-by to park in, and stopped. And they came up the hill and they were looking at me thinking, oh my God, there's a nutter. And I just said to them really politely, I said, look, you know, I'm saying this from the best intention. I'm really not intending to be rude, but I don't think you realise. I said, I was driving behind, and every single step when you're rising trot, your legs are going like this and your spurs are going like this. And I said, can you imagine how awful that would be for your horse? And 3 out of the 4 of them, their jaws dropped. And they looked so cross with me, but they didn't say anything, in fairness, because they were Surrey housewives and they were quite polite. And the 4th one, who was the only one not wearing spurs, said, thank you. Yeah, that's a really useful observation. And the others looked really cross her. But they were, in fairness, they didn't shout at me. And I wasn't meaning it to be mean, because I know these women love their horses. And I absolutely know they'd not do anything intentionally to hurt their horses. But a lot of us do it intentionally. So what you've just said, I get why you do it, but I'm still going to question you in terms of why it's right. So if I was a ballerina, now my dance teacher that's the way that you have been taught to communicate with your horse. I'm challenging you to say there's other ways. If you saw
I know what you're saying, but not quite. Not there isn't a way of being able to do as precise. No, not to do what. Not to do what I'm explaining. And
why are you asking them to do that?
With respect to you, what I'm talking about is something that you haven't experienced.
No, I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no. If you've ridden high level Spanish dressage, I didn't know that. But I can tell you from experience that there is no way of being that precise without wearing spurs, because your foot's too big. You need
the point, Johnathan, because I'm saying, okay, I'm taking it a step further, and I'm saying, you're saying you need this tool to do that, to be precise. And I get that if you're a really talented rider, you could do it with minimum. I don't accept, because I've seen so many, I work professionally with competition horses, and I do see what's going on, and I very rarely see one that hasn't been abused on the way up. My experience for 20 years of doing it. But what I'm saying is go a step further and asking you, what are you asking them to do in the first place? And why are you asking them to do those moves? Because it's a bit like when you get the top gymnasts and things like this, you know, it's beautiful to watch, and it's amazing the talent and what the human body can achieve. But most of them are crippled afterwards. But they're humans, and they've got a choice, even though most of them start off very young when they probably haven't got much choice. Different argument. But I'm saying, in terms of, if you saw a top dog trainer using a metal prod, very lightly even with a dog, I think it would raise questions. I think if someone was doing that to a ballerina.
What you need to move away from is the prod being something that hurts, because that's not what it's for. You're still thinking about the prod being something that is uncomfortable.
You're being very unrealistic, because I spend my life going to competition yards and everything, and it's the most depressing thing I've ever done, because I have worked with some really, really top riders, and I've lost count of the amount of top horses that have got spur marks on them.
Me too. We've got one here. We got a horse. We just got a horse last week. Beautiful horse. He's got marks all down the side where the person who had him has been hard and jabbing them in. Listen, you and I are actually on the same page. I agree with everything you're saying. But I think what I'm trying to explain to you is, if you imagine a keyboard and there's all the different keys, and you've got a pair of boxing gloves on, you can't touch the individual notes.
I get that completely. What I'm saying is, why in the horses do you need to touch the individual note? Because that raises on to different concerns.
Because for the horse to understand the thing I'm asking him or her,
I'm saying, why are you asking them to do that with finesse? There's two main issues I'm raising here, okay, and then we'll see what you've got to say. The first issue is a very general one: is what are we asking our horses to do? So Spanish dressage is beautiful to watch. I get that.
Yeah.
But I would still ask, are you asking horses to do things if that they're not designed to do? Because for
that's the point, though. That's exactly the point. They are. That's exactly what they're bred for. You have to remember that the horses I'm using, these Spanish horses, which are bred for exactly that, they're not wild. They're not wild. They've been bred. They've been bred specifically for that job for hundreds of years, going back right back to the Carthusian monks who used them in warfare originally, so they could spin round and they could do all these different moves. So when the knight who was riding the horse could be so accurate and so precise, that was hundreds of years ago. Now, these horses of today's generation, which have been bred specifically to move in that, and they've actually not only to think like that, but they've also been bred so they're physically different. Their shoulders and their hips are all different. So what we would be doing if we said, okay, these horses aren't allowed to do this anymore, we'd be actually making those horses redundant, because the very reason that they've been bred is to do exactly that. And I can tell you now, I can promise you, the horses that I've got and have worked with love to do it. They absolutely love to do it. If you were to just go for a hack up in the mountains, they'd be bored to death. They want to perform it. And you see, over the years, they've not only been bred physically, but they've been bred for their brain. So they're really intelligent, but also they love to work in the same way that a collie loves to go and round up sheep. It's just in them because they've been bred that way. So to say that's not going to be allowed anymore would be making the horses redundant, which itself is awful.
I think you're doing exactly what a lot of people are doing with the COVID situation. Okay, so hear me out on this. So I think what you're doing there is you're saying this is the outcome, that they love to work, which they might or might not. That's a different discussion. I know
not all of them do, but the ones who get to the very top love it.
But I think you're also missing the point about what happens to the vast majority of them on there. So what I'm meaning by that is, you're looking at an ideal situation, which you and I know the vast majority of horses don't have that luxury. So you've just got a 4-year-old horse, which is a baby, which is not physically developed, that has come to you, that has done a level of training and a method of training that have left physical marks on its body.
Yes.
And that will have an ongoing mental and physical impact on them.
No, well, it won't have he's in here, he's perfect. The people who had this horse before, he is, I can tell you. I mean, I can tell you this horse is so noble. He's lovely, lovely temperament, willing, loves his work. Where he came from, which was down in Andalusia near Granada, the people who trained him, because he's 4. In fact, he was 4 yesterday. It was his birthday yesterday, so he's only just 4 years old. And they start training him at about 3.
Yeah, terrible, terrible. Not physically developed.
Well, I mean, I got to disagree with you, because I mean, it depends what are we asking him to go doing the Grand National, or are we asking him to go in a school and start to get fit and muscle up? That's all he's done. So at the moment, he's basic ride. He's basic. He's got a little bit of lateral work, but he's nowhere near developed enough to do all the really high school stuff, which is what he will be doing eventually, because he's only 4. But, you know, obviously by the time he's 6, which is by the time he gets to that age, he'll have learned loads more and he'll be physically developed. He'll be absolutely perfect for it. So they've timed it about right, in my opinion. He's got nothing at all physically wrong with him, but you can see where the people who've had him have used what's called a serretta, which is a noseband, metal noseband. And it teaches the horse, and I'm against this, it teaches the horse to keep the nose down. So he has got marks from that. And he's also got marks on his flank where they've obviously overused the spurs. Mm-hmm. Now, that's where he's come from. He's not going to be having that here with us. Absolutely not. We're not using the noseband, and we're not wearing spurs with him, because he's not ready for that yet. But when he gets older, when he understands the difference between here, here, and here, we've got to be more precise so he knows exactly what to do. But that's in the future. He's not ready for that yet. So I hear what you're saying, but I think you're looking to be upset about something that, in some cases, yes, there is abuse. In my particular case, there definitely is. I can guarantee you that. But I mean, what would you prefer? Would you prefer none of the horses were trained to do it, and the horses weren't bred for it, and they were just all running around free in fields, and that was it? Was that what you prefer, or would you? I mean, I don't know what is your ultimate destination where you'd like to be with
speak, I'll tell you, because it's a bit like me saying, do you want me to punch with me? You've gone from that extreme to that extreme, which is exactly the same. So what I'm trying to bring out of this is the similarities. So you and I find it absolutely amazing that people aren't seeing what's going on with COVID, with the vaccine, with the control agenda, and we can see it really, really clearly. Okay. And lots of people can, not just us, you know, millions of people can see it really clearly. But the ones who can't see it at all, because they've got this vision. This is their life. This is what they know. This is what they understand. So I'm just having a conversation with you, and I'm applying the same principles to what we do with our animals. And so what I'm saying is, in between having horses free running around in the fields all the time, and doing top level competition stuff that they might or might not be bred for, in between that, there's a million other shades of grey. Okay. So the fact that your horse has come to you at 4 years old, or it's come to you as a 3-year-old, now just turned 4, and it's already had a metal noseband and spurs, what I'm saying and trying to say the point is that is common. That is common. Now, just because you're not going to do it moving forward, that horse has already suffered that, which is abuse. It is abuse. If you did that to a child or a dog or something, it would be clear abuse. But because it's an accepted training method in a lot of places, so what I'm saying to you is, it's a bit like if you see all the different breeds of dogs that you've got now.
Well, hang on, just stick to the, because I was going to come back and you've changed.
Okay. So with the horses, in terms of what I'd like to see, I'd like people to see what is appropriate of what we're asking them to do athletically, because there's a huge difference. So I used to be a gymnast. Now, when you're a gymnast, if you're a mediocre gymnast, it can be really healthy for you, because you've got the mixture of strength and suppleness and the mental stimulation and the achievement, and everything goes through. But as soon as you get to be an elite gymnast, then you do a lot of damage to your body, a lot of damage, because the nature that you're pushing yourself way beyond what becomes healthy. And it's not just gymnasts, it's athletes, it's football players and everything.
Well, what's your point? What's your point?
Yeah, I'm just asking you to let me get to it. You've spoken for ages. So my point is with the horses. So with the horses, there's a lot of things that you could do to use their natural prowess and give them a job and keep them physically and mentally entertained without pushing them to that limit where you needed the fine tuning. Because my point is where you've got current use of those tools, I would honestly say from what I've seen that 90% of people abuse them.
I agree that there is a large portion of people who abuse it because the person themselves isn't skilled enough to understand how to use it.
Absolutely.
But what I'm saying is, like, the very, very top level horses in the world at this particular discipline are fit and healthy, and they love what they do. They're not abused.
But
they definitely
often were started as abused.
No, I wouldn't say that often. Oh no, because I would say that, like, somewhere down the scale, like you were just talking about, there are going to be people who haven't got the subtlety of the skill, so they use tactics which, in the wrong hands, are abusive. But the people who are operating regularly and are professional at this level, it's not in their interest to abuse the horses. They want the horses to enjoy it. They want the horses to go out looking $1 million. They want them to be fit. They want them to be healthy. Because why would you think, okay, I want to be the best at what I do, but I'll do it on a horse that's been knocked around? You wouldn't. You want it to be the best.
You would think that was the case, but what I'm saying, in my experience, and I work with a huge range of other people who work in the horse industry, it's not our experience, because most people who work at that level, they're not interested in how fit and healthy the horse is when it's 25 years old. So most top level horses have quite a short working career, a bit like top human athletes often do, not horse riders, but some of the other ones which are a little bit more physical. So a lot of the time, they're not looking at the long-term effects of what this level of work is doing on the animal's body. And it's very well known, for example, in the racing industry.
Well, I was about to say that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, in racing, I know that a lot of horses do get abused.
Yeah, a lot of do. And a lot of eventers do. And a lot of dressage horses do. A lot of dressage horses are very broken very early. So a lot of their careers are very cut short because of injuries and because of various issues. Not just injuries. I mean, the epidemic in stomach ulcers, for example, in competition horses and all horses now is just off the scale. And 20 years ago, you just didn't see that. So the point is it's like looking at the questioning of what we're all doing with our animals in the same way that we've been questioning other aspects of our lives over the things. And we see a lot of people, when they're looking at, it doesn't matter, the mask, if it's doing my bit for society, I'll do it. We see a lot of people at the moment fighting for their limitations. And what I see is a lot of people doing that in their animal work. I'm not saying that every, Spanish riding horse, dressage horse is unhappy. I'm not saying that, but I am saying from my experience, a lot of them are. But
yeah, but you could also apply that.
The people don't realise.
I see that, but you could apply that to people who aren't trying to do things at the top level. I mean, how many people have got dogs and they don't compete with dogs, but they've got dogs that are kept in really crap homes? How many people have got...
This is my point, Johnathan. This is exactly my point, which is why I started bringing other things. So I've had a conversation with a lady today who's got a dog and thinks it's acceptable for it to have a 20-minute walk a day and spend the rest of the day and it's shut in a house. It's ridiculous, our level of expectations about what's acceptable for all animals. How many people do you know that have got rabbits in hutches with a tiny, tiny little pen? Well, they go out on the grass each day, but they put them out in a... And what I'm saying is it's endemic across, I do not want this vaccine. But so many people are quite happy to vaccinate their dogs every year or their horses every year, and they don't question it. And what I'm hoping is that we'll start questioning a lot of what we're doing with our animals in the same way that we're questioning what we're doing as a society.
Yeah, well, maybe when, if and when, and I'm hoping we are going to get to the point where this great awakening sweeps the globe and people suddenly do have the realization that you and I have had. And when we get to that point, maybe people will start being a bit more conscientious about how they treat not only animals, but each other. And I hope that we get to that point. I mean, in an ideal world, this is the thing, isn't it? How many times do we say, oh, in an ideal world?
Yeah.
You know what? The thing is, we do live in an ideal world. It's just that we've made a balls of it. I mean, you were talking a minute ago about people who have no other alternative apart from to be involved in the poaching industry in Africa. Well, look at Bill Gates, look at Elon Musk, look at Jeff Bezos, look at these billionaires who are wealthier than whole countries. And how can it possibly be right that this psychopath, Bill Gates, is talking about blocking out the sun to change the climate? Who gives him the right? He's not God. He's just a bloody fella. What gives him the right to think that he can make a decision that will affect not only you and me, but every living creature on the planet, when he's got enough money to end world poverty like that? I mean, that's the thing that we should all be saying. The billionaires of the world, I don't know how many, there's something like 3,000, or how many of the billionaires there are in the world. Why on earth doesn't everybody else turn around and go, well, hang on a minute, everyone's bankrupt, half the world's starving. What about you lot getting your hand in your pocket and helping these poor buggers? That's what we do. And I agree with you. I mean, the ideal world situation, Catherine, I'd love to be able to go about my whole life and never cause any harm or upset to anything or anybody. That's a bit of an unrealistic goal, because you can help this person, and by helping that person, you're neglecting that person. So you can only do your best, can't you? But when you think of the people who do have the ability to help millions of people, and they don't do anything apart from feather their own nest, that is why I think that at the moment people need to, the people that we're in tune with, need to group together and shine the light on for the people who can't see it and say, well, hang on a minute, these so-called demigods that think they're as important. I mean, I hate to pick on the royal family because the royal family are very popular, but they're all bloody family. I mean, look at the BS that happened when Philip died, and there was a picture of the Queen sitting there on her own, and everyone's going, oh, you're not alone. Hang on a minute, how many other people have lost husbands this year and wives and have been died in nursing homes? No one's crying for them. And yet this billionaire, squillionaire woman that, basically never smiles, why do people kind of act as if she's some god? She's just a bloody person. She could end poverty tomorrow and she doesn't do it. I'd have a lot more respect for her if she did.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And my point with all of this isn't saying there's never a right or wrong answer. There's no answer that I could say to you, this is what I think is right, because everything's got a balance. I've got dogs and cats, they're all rescue, and I feed them meat. And I've just told you I'm feeding my fox chicken wings. So those chickens have had to die for me to feed my fox. So there's no wrong answer. What I'm just doing now is questioning everything and making a balanced argument then. And then I've had loads of occasions over the last few months where someone else has said something else to me and I've thought, oh shit, didn't think of that. Classic example is when I went from vegetarian to vegan. I don't know how I could be so stupid. This is why I get some of the cognitive dissonance at the moment, because it was only when someone said to me, and I was old when I did this, so I wasn't a young child, so I should have known better. And then someone said to me, well, how do you think they get the cows to keep producing milk?
Well, it's awful when you think about it.
And I was just like, God, how can it never occurred to me to even ask the question. Never occurred to me. Now, once someone had pointed that out to me, obviously that changed everything. But I didn't think of it on my own, and I probably would never have got there on my own.
My phone's just beeped. I've got 30 seconds left. It's going to come out.
Okay, that's great. Well, we'll carry this on next time, shall we?
All right. Hey, listen, we could have had our first disagreement there, but we didn't.
We nearly didn't. No. I just love. I like passionate conversations. I love it because you always learn something from it.
It's good. Let's think of another one for next time, because I like being challenged. It's good.
Me too. Yeah. Right, so Jonathan's gone, so we'll do another one next time. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm sure there's going to be lots of comments on this one. Take care.